Hello Internet, and welcome to the Collective Arcana. We are a channel all about tabletop gaming, and also Happy New Year! You're going to be seeing a lot more of us in the new revamped channel in 2022, we promise. Today we're going to sort of continue our tradition of covering Pathfinder Second Edition's sort of year ahead preview of what has been announced, what's been confirmed, coming for our favorite game, Pathfinder Second Edition, in 2022. We're going to start chronologically. We're going to talk about everything sort of month to month as it's coming out, and then I'll go back and I will sort of deep dive on the things, especially the things that I'm really excited about. So in January, that's now, but later in January, we're going to see they're still finishing up the Strength of Thousands Adventure Path, which is set in a Mwage Expanse, which is very cool, but we're also getting the quest for the Frozen Flame Adventure Path that is going to start in January. It's going to continue through February and March. Also in February, we're going to get our first Pathfinder bounty. I believe it's bounty 18. That is not for a party of level 1 adventures. I believe it's going to be for a party of level 3 adventurers. And Paizo has said that they're going to be putting out some more higher level. They think they've got level 1 pretty much covered. And so now they're going to be setting up some more higher level ones. And we'll just take a moment here and talk about what those are if you're not familiar. They are these little, maybe an hour scenarios. You can use them to introduce people to the game, of course. Or if you're a GM, you can just drop them on a bounty board or something in your game, and they can be little side missions. So they're just designed to be these little, very, very digestible, little fun-sized adventures. In March, we are getting the Book of the Dead. It's our first 2022 big rule book, and it's going to be focused all about undead. Don't worry, we're going to talk about it a lot here in a moment. In April, we're going to be getting a couple of re-released adventures. One from First Edition, updated by a third party, Kingmaker, and we're definitely going to talk a little bit about that, as well as Abomination Vaults, which is actually a Second Edition adventure path that came out just about a year ago, but was very popular, and so they're going to experiment with doing a sort of re-release of that in a single hardcover volume instead of the month-to-month volumes broken up like they do in their normal adventure paths. We're also, in April, we're going to be getting Knights of Lastwall, I believe it's the only, right now, announced Lost Omens book for 2022. I'm sure there will be more. I hope there will be more. This one promises to go in depth on the Knights of Lastwall, which have been covered a little bit, but it's going to be nice to have a deep dive on that, especially because it's looking like the Whispering Tyrant could be a real problem in Second Edition, so it's going to be fun. In May, we're going to get a new standalone adventure module, which is different from an adventure path, because it's all just sort of right there, called Shadows at Sundown. I believe it's for 11th level party. Now, Shadows at Sundown sounds pretty spooky, and it leads right into the very spooky Dark Archives, where we're going to see the final versions of the Thaumaturge and the Psychic that were playtested back in September. And full circle, September of 2022 is going to see the release of another updated First Edition adventure path into Second Edition, Crown of the Kobold King. And that's going to be an adventure for, it's a collection of shorter adventures that can be played out as a single little mini campaign, getting you from 1st level to 6th level. So if you've watched our previous ones, you know that we don't usually cover the adventure paths so much. We wanted to do it this time because there are a couple for the first time that I'm really excited about. I played my first adventure, pre-published adventures ever. Just recently, I ran through a couple of them this year, and they are pretty fun. I think I definitely could see me running them more, especially as you repeat one and have sort of, it'll be nice to have something that's pre-written and ready to go in your back pocket. And some of the ones announced are really exciting to me, things that I've had my eye on for a long time. So that's why we're sort of talking about them when we didn't before. We're also doing it because there's a little less announced this year than in previous years. And a part of that is just because of shipping delays and all sorts of other things caused by COVID, of course. But there's also the factor of, and this is something that I wanted to make sure to bring up, the United Paizo Workers Union forming. It caused a little bit of a delay in things back when they were first working to found it earlier in the fall. And so it did set things back a little bit, unfortunately. It's by all means, I'm happy about it. I don't mind the delay if it means that the people who make the products I love are going to, have a little more say in how they're treated and what they're workday looks like. So it's a good thing overall, but if you noticed, again, that's sort of why we're changing the content a little bit here. And of course, should go without saying, if you hadn't already guessed, we absolutely support the United Paizo Workers Union. And we're very excited that they're leading that charge within the tabletop community. And we hope that other brands, especially the bigger brands, Wizards of the Coast, will follow suit shortly. So, Quest for the Frozen Flame is, I don't know a whole lot about it. It's not really out yet, but we do know that it's going to be about a sort of nomadic tribe of mammoth herders getting chased out of their traditional lands by a war horde of some sort. And so it's going to be it seems like it's going to have this very like Conan the Barbarian meets, 10,000 years BC. We know that there will be dinosaurs, mammoths, and similar, maybe anachronistic combos for the real world, but perfect for the setting of Galarian and perfect for, sitting down at a table to play. Sounds very exciting, very fun. And that's going to be a 3-part. It's going to start at level 1, and it's going to go to about level 10, is typically how they do it, instead of a full 1 to 20 that some of their other adventure paths are. And I like that they're breaking it up. They really started that with 2nd edition with the Abomination Vaults, and that's a little bit more approachable to me, and I like it because you sort of have this grounded beginning to a game, and then at level 10 you can either wrap it up and go play something else, or you can now take these characters off rails and go and explore the world now that you've adjusted to it. I like that a lot. Like all adventure paths, that's going to release monthly, and all of these things, I should say that all of these are tentative dates because of the aforementioned shipping problems and other delays caused by restructuring within the company. We could still see some more delays. I don't necessarily think so. Hopefully everyone's hoping that we're sort of at the end of the shipping difficulties and things like that, but you just never know. So tentative dates. But yeah, so the Quest for the Frozen Flame is going to continue monthly, January, February, and March. And then in February, we're going to get that first bounty that I'm very excited about. And then March is a big month because we're getting Book of the Dead. Now, Book of the Dead is going to have rules, tools, everything for players and GMs to run an undead-focused or centric campaign or character, as well as just add to those sort of adventures that you might run them within a non-undead-focused adventure, of course. But a lot more tools and a lot of things that people have really been looking for. There will be rules for players to become undead, expansions to the bestiary, a whole bunch of new undead to both have to fight and to summon. We're going to see some necromancer options for players, including a hallowed necromancer. The idea that you're controlling life and death for good instead of raising the armies of undead to conquer the world. But there are going to be rules for player characters. There's going to be an ancestry for skeletons, which is pretty neat. So you can just start as a skeleton. And then they're going to be doing archetypes for some other undead. I've got the list here. Liches, ghouls, mummies, vampires, ghosts, and zombies. So what that means is your character can start off as, alive, and then as of 2nd level, and it could be like a class archetype where if you're locked into selecting it at 2nd level, it kicks in at 1st level. We saw that with some class archetypes, and that's a cool mechanic to make sure that people are starting their game, if they start at level 1, with their unique character mechanics intact. But I don't know that for sure. So for now, just assume starts at 2nd level, which isn't a big deal. But it means that it allows these to be a lot more powerful than if they were just your ancestry or your heritage by making them on par with class feats, which, if you're not familiar, in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, class feats tend to be the most powerful feat options you get access to, within ancestry, general, and skill feats sort of going from there. And that means just that you're going to have more power, so you're going to feel a lot more like a ghoul or a vampire than if it was just your ancestry. Is that going to be the best way to handle it? I think it probably will. Yeah, I think it's a really brilliant way to do that. But only time will really tell if that's the right way. I think it is. And I think just because of the balancing aspect of it, I think it's going to be really fun. I think it's a very interesting, especially with ghosts. We know that there's going to be incorporeality and flight, and we've seen how ancestries have handled flight. So we could make some guesses there, but the incorporeal thing with ghosts, I don't know. My wife, Sarah, she, part of the channel, she had this brilliant idea of, maybe it'll be based on, like focus points basically. But then the question is it going to be focus points to become physical, to, knock something off a shelf like a poltergeist, or, to attack someone or cast a spell? Or are you going to, be corporeal most of the time and use your focus points to go incorporeal for a few moments? That's probably the more balanced way. But I don't know. I've been surprised so many times by the mechanics in Pathfinder Second Edition that it's hard for me to guess. I have some ideas about the ways that I would do it, but I really don't know. I really don't know which direction they're going to go. So I'm very excited to see how that's going to be play out. We also know that there's going to be proper undead options for summoner. So they've had spirits, phantoms before when they released, but they didn't have like a physical undead. And now they're going to, and that's very cool. We also know that there's going to be an undead master archetype, which is going to be sort of like a beastmaster archetype, but with a summoned zombie. So that's cool. I'm hoping also just to see in general some undead companions or templates that can be applied to animal companions, so that you're not locked into a specific type of undead pet, but you can put an undead template on any pet that you might have. But just getting a few dedicated undead companions in the list will probably be fine, or at least be enough to know how to work a homebrew one in. One other thing that's cool with Book of the Dead is that there is going to be a short adventure included in it that by Jason Bowman, who famously loves undead, and he has said that it's going to be a pretty replayable sort of adventure where it won't be the same anytime that you play through it, which is always kind of the case with Adventure Paths. But so the fact that he's saying it really makes me think that it's going to be have a lot of different ways that it can go, and that's really exciting. It's really fun to include that, and that's these theme books. That's the virtue of them. The really cool, exciting thing that we saw with Secrets of Magic and Guns and Gears is the fact that they can sort of break the mold on what they're showing us. We know this one is going to come, for example, with a huge number of additional undead. It's going to almost be like an additional bestiary, but focused all around one concept. And that's got everyone excited thinking about what the next version of that book, what the next focused one could be. And so it's just really, it's a brave new world with these sort of books, because it's going to have a little bit of everything. It's going to really be what they sort of said that they wanted it to be, which is, you can buy the core books, and then depending on what type of campaign you want to play, you can go out and buy Secrets of Magic. If you want to have a magic-heavy campaign, you can go out and you can buy Guns and Gears. If you want to have a technology, steampunk, gear punk sort of game, you can go out and buy Book of the Dead if you want to have a heavily undead-focused campaign. And that's really, really just a terrific way to handle it, these sort of expansions into the game, because especially if you're a new player, you are a new GM, you can just see a thing on a shelf and know that you're going to get everything with this one book that you need to play in the exact type of world setting that you're creating for your players. And as we sort of saw in Guns and Gears, even if you're not necessarily playing in the world of Galarian, the lore and the things like that it's going to give you are going to be great inspiration for a homebrew world and give you great plot hooks. Even if you're not playing in that same world, they're going to be pretty universal a lot of times, or at least easily fit into your world. So don't pump the brakes on it just because you're not playing in Galarian. I promise I don't play in Galarian either, and I don't think there's been a book released yet that I haven't been able to get use out of, even the ones that are that are sort of touted as being pretty much all lore. So very good, very handy, regardless of where you're playing. So April is packed up. It's loaded. We have the Knights of Lastwall book coming. It's going to be a great companion to the Book of the Dead, because the Knights of Lastwall were this order of knights sworn to protect and keep sealed away the Whispering Tyrant, this powerful lich from First Edition. And towards the end of First Edition, they failed. The Whispering Tyrant, Tarbafon, got out and caused a whole bunch of problems, pretty much destroyed towns and really just shoved a whole region sort of into chaos. So these knights are the last remnants of this order, and we've had a few different archetypes for them, but this is going to be a deep dive into how that order has changed given the nature of things now that Tar is out, as well as having new rules for playing those characters, new support for existing archetypes, not just the Lastwall archetypes, but also the knightly archetypes that we already have, the Marshal and the Cavalier, which are two archetypes that were grossly in need of an update because they cover such a wide number of characters, so the more support for those, especially, the better. And this is a prime example, even if you're not playing in Galarian, there's a good chance your world is going to have some undead, and as such, it's probably going to have a group dedicated to fighting undead. And so even if you're not planning to have the actual Knights of Lastwall, you can have your order of whatever that is specifically dedicated to fighting undead in your world, and this is going to give you ranks and how to rank up within that organization, NPCs, lore, background, and possibly, if you are playing in Galarian, maybe we'll finally get a revelation as to what this weird sort of new patron or deity is that is sort of the patron of this splinter group of Knights of Lastwall. So really exciting stuff there. And we are getting that Abomination Vaults revamp. Now, I don't play a lot of Adventure Paths, but the Abomination Vaults has gotten nothing but sterling reviews. It's a great sort of mega dungeon that isn't just a mega dungeon. If you're worried about that, there's a lot going on in the town above and a lot of little side missions and things to uncover where you just keep going down, down, down under this old lighthouse. So it's really very popular. And so I'm excited to see it in a single hardcover edition because I don't do the adventure paths and I don't like to do just I'm the kind of person that if I'm reading comics, I wait until there's a graphic novel. I don't usually buy month to month. So this, for me, this is a great format. They're experimenting with it. They're not sure if it's going to be something they do more often. It'll really depend on how well this is received because they don't want it to eat into the Adventure Path sales, but they also do want to appeal to people like me who aren't buying the Adventure Path sales. So it's really just going to depend. It really is an experiment for them, and we'll see if they continue it. I hope so because it does appeal to me, but it may not to you. And especially if you already have the Abomination Vaults, as far as I know, there's not going to be anything added to it. I think they have mentioned that they're going to do a couple of tweaks to a couple of encounters that were generally accepted to be overtuned, but very minor stuff. What's not going to be minor is the new Kingmaker that's coming out. Kingmaker was a very popular first edition adventure path that was made into a video game by Alcat, I believe. And the Wrath of the Righteous, the sequel, not necessarily to Kingmaker plot-wise, but sequel to the Pathfinder adapted into CRPGs, just came out. And so Kingmaker was the first one. And Kingmaker is about a group of adventurers who are called, all sorts of people get called by this king. He says, these neighboring lands are technically mine. I cannot rule them. There's too many bandits. There's too many problems. Anyone who wants to go over and get rid of these bandits, you get the land. You can become rulers of this land. I will give it to you. It's a very much more expanded idea of that if you can spend the night in the haunted house, you get to keep the haunted house. And it's very popular. It introduced a lot of hex-based exploration for Pathfinder 1E and a bunch of other concepts, including building up a city, a kingdom. And so for that reason, it really took off in popularity. Now, this is not being technically published directly by Paizo, but more in partnership with Paizo. What's interesting about this, if you play Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, there will be a version of it for you, including a bestiary. But if you're playing Pathfinder Second Edition, of course, it's still new because it's still an update to Second Edition from First Edition. So for me, somebody who did not play Kingmaker in First Edition, I'm very excited. I don't necessarily know that I will run it, but those exploration and especially those kingdom building rules are something that I'm very intrigued and will be very happy to have on my shelf. I almost forgot, in April, we're getting the Outlaws of Alkenstar. It's a new adventure path featuring gunslingers and an area of the world where magic is sort of unreliable. And so they have moved to focusing on technology. If you've got guns and gears, you're probably excited for this adventure path. It's also going to be level 1 through 10, released in 3 parts, month to month. And it's going to cover corruption and it's basically for a group of, maybe not necessarily lawful good people to take advantage of it. So that's going to be pretty exciting. And then in July, we're going to start the Adventure Path Bloodlords, which is a set in Geb. There's going to be some intrigue, possibly, with some undead courts. And I forgot to mention it in our year ahead preview, so I do apologize for that. And July has the Dark Archive. Now, July and the Dark Archive are very exciting. We know that it's going to be broken up into, I think, 8 case files. And it's all about a lost, or maybe 2, but I think one lost Pathfinder Society Lodge, which is sort of an in-universe, I'm not really sure how to describe it, which is this Adventurers League sort of thing. So this is going to be like the X-Files of that. It's going to have the final version of the Thaumaturge, including the new implements and new mechanics there. The final version of the Psychic, which is going to be probably pretty different from what we saw, as it was, most people agreed it was pretty out of tune. But it's going to be a very exciting thing also because it's going to have cryptids and this concept of sort of monsters that are maybe more elusive and less taken for granted. The way that in this game, everyone knows that undead and, dragons and things like that and demons are all real. No one's going to laugh at you if you run into a tavern and say, I saw one of these. These are things that most people don't necessarily believe are real. And so that's sort of exciting to see how they handle that. We know that they're going to have some sort of new mechanics because they're going to be tools specifically to hunt them, and character options that you can take only if you've survived an encounter with these cryptid creatures. So that's pretty exciting. It's going to be weird to see how they do that. We know that there are going to be some time-based and probably some other strange options for characters, including a time oracle, which is going to be very interesting. And we also know that we're going to see some options for other classes in terms of subclasses and possibly even class archetypes. We don't know that blood magic is going to come, but I think it's probably a pretty good place for it. But who's to say? I don't think that's been confirmed either way. But do expect to see some other class options, the same way that we saw with Secrets of Magic. In fact, one of the things that we know we're going to have are this thing called Apocryphal Divine Magic. Now, in 1E, I think there was something to it, so you may have a better inkling than I do because I don't really recall anything like that. But I guess the idea is it could be either this sort of new way, almost like new type of domains but maybe separate from domains. I don't really know. But basically, it seems like it's going to be this new way to add some additional options to a divine spellcaster. It's probably going to be treated as a class archetype, or maybe sort of like the spell trickster stuff that we saw in Secrets of Magic. Maybe that's this thing that any divine caster can get access to. I really don't know yet. I hope it's that latter. I really liked how the magical trickster mechanics worked. That seemed really fun, just where it's presented as an archetype, but it said GMs may want to allow anyone to take these feats. So I hope that's sort of what we see, but I just don't know. Finally, the Crown of the Kobold King re-release, another first edition. This one, unlike Kingmaker, is going to be completely done in-house with Paizo, but it's going to be a sort of re-release of a few short standalone adventures. Not related, but not presented as a full adventure path, is my understanding. I didn't play it. Like I said, I didn't play a lot of adventure paths before. But it's going to be collected all in one place. There will be a few new things. This is being done as a Paizo's 20th anniversary celebration. So expect a few surprises in it versus, the Abomination vaults. That's all we have announced. Now it's entirely possible that just like last year, we may see some new announcements come. I don't think we're going to see any new playtests immediately in the new year. Like we did last year, we had one just a couple days into the new year, they announced one. But I'm expecting them to slow down a little bit with some of the content, both for the reasons that we discussed previously and because they said before that they wanted to probably release just 2 classes a year. So I don't think we're going to see a playtest until probably mid-year for a 2023 release instead of another release for 2022. I think the only new classes we're going to see in an official capacity this year are the Thaumaturge and the Psychic, but I do think mid-year we'll see a playtest for 1 or 2 new classes. So, is there anything else I'm looking forward to? I really am wondering if Knights of Lastwall, Book of the Dead, or possibly a playtest, we'll see a new doctrine for Cleric, the Inquisitor doctrine, or if, because a lot of its things were sort of folded into, into the Thaumaturge, so Paizo may decide it's not worth it, or they may decide that releasing it alongside the Thaumaturge, much the same way that they released the Mastermind racket for Rogues alongside the Investigator. There's a chance, I think, that we'll see the new doctrine come this year for the Inquisitor, since we're getting similar classes, and they seem to like to basically release everything related to an idea sort of all at once. So we could see it. I hope to see it. I'm hoping we get a kineticist at some point. In our home game, we've done a very good job of creating a kineticist from the Psychic playtest, just making it wisdom-based, which of course is not quite right for the 1E kineticist, but we played the Legendary Games Pathfinder 2E kineticist, and in addition to some other problems that it had, vis-a-vis balancing, the biggest problem that I had with it was that my player, their primary ability score was Constitution, which meant that they really had to scramble to make skill checks, to have a good skill selection, and which meant that they just had fewer options in and out of combat. So we moved it to a wisdom-based. We didn't have any wisdom-based casters. Well, we have a part-time cleric, but it's a war priest. She's not investing wisdom. So we went wisdom, and we went primal spellless instead of the occult. So I would hope potentially that there could be a future of kineticist there. It works surprisingly well, as both are these sort of cantrip-focused spellcasters. So I think that I'll let you know how it goes, but it's going very well so far in our homebrew. So we could see something like that with the Psychic. I doubt it, honestly. And I'm sure a lot of people would be much more happy to have Kineticist as a full class. Probably even with Inquisitor, a lot of people would love to see it. I, for one, don't want to see Paizo abandon the Doctrine system for Clerics. So I hope that we see both an overhaul to make War Priests still have some value after level 13. I hope they don't abandon the Doctrine, is all I'm saying. But that's it. Let me know what you're hoping to see in 2022 from Paizo. Let me know if there's any classes that you're hoping to see in the, I think, inevitable, probably announced at PaizoCon, so summer playtest. Or if there's something else that you're hoping that one of the announced books will have in it. Any sort of surprises that you're hoping to see, what you're excited about that we have confirmed, because there's a lot to be excited about. Just let me know down in the comments. Come hang out with us over in the Discord. We'd love to have you over there. We get a lot of great people. It's a really nice environment. And of course, if you liked this video and you haven't already, subscribe. It helps the channel out so much. Or just throw us a like. Share the link. That's a thing now. Share the link, I guess, is a new way to do it. We really appreciate anything you can do to help grow and spread the channel if you're enjoying it. And if you're not enjoying it, by all means, let us know what you'd like to see. If there's something you'd like to see me cover. Pathfinder Second Edition is, of course, our favorite game. But I'm really looking forward to, in the new year, trying some other games out. So if you have any suggestions for me, head down to the comments. Let me know. Thanks so much for watching. We really appreciate your time and appreciate you waiting for us to be able to devote more of our time to you, as we hope to do a lot more of this year and going forward. Thanks so much for watching. Welcome to the Collective, and we will see you next time.